Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. Sony's second attempt to cash in on Spider-Man without actually doing a Spider-Man movie is here. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. What I like, what I dislike, let's get into it. So for those of you that don't know about the weird legal limbo that Spider-Man is in, Sony owns the movie rights to Spider-Man and all the villains and people relating to Spider-Man. Marvel has come in and basically leased those rights, technically speaking, to Spider-Man so they can put him in the MCU, giving us Spider-Man Homecoming and his appearances in Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. So Sony can't make a regular Spider-Man movie, but they still own the rights to all these Spider-Men. So apparently their another roundabout way is to make an animated Spider-Man movie. So that's the general backstory of why this movie exists, is Sony trying to cash in. So let's get into it. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is brought to us by three directors, Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman. Which, for an animated movie, yeah, it's not always that weird to have multiple directors, so there you go. And none of them has really done anything that I might have seen. I think one of them did Rise of the Guardians. So the general plot is it's the origin story of Miles Morales, who is the ultimate version of Spider-Man in the Ultimate Comics, which is a different universe in the comics than the regular universe. Look, it's a whole crazy thing. I can't get into what Ultimate Comics really is without just making this video too long, so it's a different version of Spider-Man. And something is happening to his world that is bringing in other dimensions and other versions of Spider-Man, and it threatens to tear his world apart. Without too many spoilers, that is the plot of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So let's talk about the characters. So of course we have our main character, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, played by Shameik Moore, who I don't recognize him from anything. So surprisingly enough, I have actually never read a comic with Miles Morales in it. I never super got into the Ultimate Universe. I am starting to try and get into it now, but it's kind of been a slow process. So I know he's part of the regular universe now because, comics and their craziness. So I can't really say I know a lot about Miles Morales and like his personality and things, so I couldn't say how close they got to that from the comics. But what I will say is he is an incredibly fun character. He's basically like a freshman version of Spider-Man, learning his powers, although he has a separate set of spider powers. On top of being able to wall crawl and be fast and strong, he also has the spider shock, which is like a electric sting, and he also can turn invisible. So, little extra powers for you. And but yeah, he's a fun character. He's a lot more street. He's younger. He's kind of goofier. He's not quite as smart as Peter Parker. And he's a lot more relatable. I really enjoyed this characterization of Miles, and he was a lot of fun. I liked him a lot. Then we have Spider-Woman, or Spider-Gwen, played by Haley Steinfeld, who is also in that Bumblebee movie that's going on right now.
Oh, I'm good. No, I'm good, thanks.
So, she's apparently in all the things. So, she was great. Spider-Gwen's another one I really haven't read much about, but I like her a lot. She's a no-nonsense, hardworking Spider-Woman. She is from an alternate universe where where she got bit by the spider instead of Peter Parker, and kind of lived a different life from that. And she's, really interesting. She's, like I said, no nonsense, straight laced. She's been Spider-Man for a while, so she has very little patience for Miles trying to figure his shit out and his goofiness. And I like that. She's a fun character. I enjoyed what she was in. It was good. And of course, you can't have Spider-Man without Peter Parker, played by Jake Johnson. This guy from Jurassic World.
Someone has to stay behind.
Oh, no, I have a boyfriend.
Yeah, but I didn't know that you guys were like together.
We are.
Yeah. So this is basically a Spider-Man who's been Spider-Manning around for 20 years. And he's just lived a hard life. He's kind of given up. He's just like out of it and done. Like, I've seen so many villains. I've fought so many villains and they just keep being villains. And he's very world weary. But they actually make a lot of fun of that. And he's actually a really great character. He's kind of like the mopey, bachelor guy, and I like that. They had some really good fun with him, and he was good. I really like his characterization. And without spoiling too much, we also have the additional voices of Liev Schreiber, Chris Pine, Zoe Kravitz, Lily Tomlin, John Mulaney, and the Nicolas Cage.
You're the lowest on the totem pole here, Alva. The lowest. Do you realize that? Every other secretary who's been here longer than you, Alva. Every one. And even if there was someone here who was here just one day longer than you, I still wouldn't ask that person to partake in such a miserable job as long as you were around.
So keep your ears out for those characters because they are also in it. So what did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse do well? Well, first thing is the animation in this is gorgeous. It's like this CG but cell animated, bright, colorful, just dynamic world. I love it. It is fast moving and energetic and kind of this in between of like an anime but CG, and it's just really cool. I really love the animation in this. It's a lot of fun and it's a very bright, exciting movie. I like that a lot. And on top of that, the other Spider-Men from other Spider-Verses also kind of have their own animation styles, and that's kind of cool too, to see that mix up where there's a little bit more hand-drawn on some of them, and others, have different color palettes. It's very cool to see that, kind of brought in as well to kind of show that they're from different universes, and it's very fun and just a bright, fun movie. And this movie is definitely a comedy, and I gotta say, about 90% of the jokes land. It is hilarious. It's a lot of fun. They're making jokes about goofiness of Spider-Man, goofiness of superhero movies in general, goofiness of villains. It's just a lot of, poking a lot of fun, a lot of tropes and things. It's very akin to The Incredibles. This is very much the spiritual successor to Incredibles. It's the animation, although different, is still that bright, fun, open color. It's poking a lot of fun at superhero dynamics and superhero tropes and things, but also being very earnest to it as well, and having those moments where it is actually, paying homage and actually taking itself seriously, but in the end is still a comedy, and it works. It works really well. This is Incredibles, and which is kind of incredible because we got Incredibles 2 this year, and these two would be fighting head to head on, which one's the best animated superhero movie of the year, because it's very close. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but I will mention there is a Stan Lee cameo, and although it's not his last, because I believe he has already filmed his cameos for Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, but they do pay a lot of homage to him. His scene in this is actually very strong. They also give Stan Lee and Steve Ditko a lot of praise at the end of the movie and make a nice little note about it. Two great comic legends that have passed recently, and both obviously were the creators of Spider-Man. So unfortunate, but I think they did a really strong homage to him, and it shows a lot of love for Stan Lee. So no movie is perfect. Where does Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse fall short? Well, although I did praise its animation, there's a couple character designs that are really odd and off-putting. The main one is the Kingpin makes an appearance, and he looks terrible. Like everyone else, has human features and a human build. Although they're animated, they're still human looking, and he's just like this monster truck of a man. And it's just really kind of off-putting and out there. It throws a lot off because it's like, Jesus, what is with this guy? Like, it comes out of nowhere, like, oh, jeez. So that was a little weird. The other problem I had is they tried to do a few emotional moments, big, strong moments, and for me, personally, they felt a little flat. They didn't ring true to me. And the other thing is they did try to make me feel bad for a robot again, and I hate when movies do that. You can't make me feel bad for a robot because you can just fix it, and then you're fine. So stop it. I'm not going to feel bad for a robot. It's a robot. Just fix it if it breaks. It's fine. And finally, my last little nitpick is, of course, Gwen Stacy is pretty much the only woman in this besides Mary Jane, and really both of them are love interests. And yeah, so they make the only main character woman in this, Gwen Stacy, into a love interest. They don't go super in depth with it or make it too much of a thing, but it's just kind of annoying that, of course, the only woman character in this has to be a love interest. And it just, I think they could have done without that subplot. It was just, felt very tacked on and a little weak. But now it's spoiler time, time to spoil the movie all the time. Spoilers, so throw up the sign, jump to this time code here, because I'm going to jump into some major spoilers. Let's do this. So yeah, more about the Kingpin. So the overall general plot of this is the Kingpin is making a super collider so he can pull in another version of his family from another universe so he can be with his family. And that's kind of what sets this whole thing off. And a couple problems with that. One is no. They're from a different universe, man. You can't just pull your family in. And I get like they're trying to make him sympathetic and things of that nature, but again, that's one of those emotional things that felt flat for me. The other problem is the super collider creating, a wormhole into other universes. Seems like old pseudoscience that we're kind of past. Like it's just like goofiness of like, we know that's not a thing, so we're still doing this. That was I just didn't care for it as a weird set-off thing. So while we're talking about the Kingpin, he's just like a dude, right? He's just a guy. He's just a guy. But he holds his own against all the Spider-Men, and I'm like, what is with this? Like, he's just a dude. Why is he super strong and all this craziness? It's nuts. Like, what is going on with the Kingpin in this? I don't know what they're doing to this character. It's really weird. So something very interesting about this movie is that it's its own. Not only is it its own thing, but they didn't like try to make this a franchise. This has a concise ending. Like, this is the ending. They could definitely continue on to do more, but they didn't like leave any extra plot threads or sequel bait or anything. They just go, here's a movie. And that is very refreshing and fun for a comic movie these days, because it's always like a little bit at the end there to like tease the next one. But this one's definitely like, well, let's come out with this one, see how it does first. So, if it makes a sequel, great. If it doesn't, also great, because this is a great movie. So that was kind of cool and really interesting. I like that. One last spoiler, and I just got to talk about it because it's so great. The end credit scene might be one of the greatest end credit scenes of all time. I fucking loved it. So they bring up, like, you see Spider-Man 2099. I'm like, oh, okay, here's where they're going to sequel bait the next movie. And he gets this device that lets him travel through the other dimensions. Like, okay, so here's the next movie, right? But no, he just travels to the 1960s cartoon and goes into basically to that meme of the two Spider-Men pointing at each other, and they just get in a fight of who's pointing at each other first. It was hilarious. It was just a perfect example of the comic timing in this movie. Is so great. Just like, no, you pointed. No, you pointed first. You're still pointing at. You're pointing at me. It was hilarious. I really loved it. It was great. One of the best end credit scenes of the year. Definitely up there. So that's enough of spoilers. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. This movie is fantastic. It has been getting a lot of critical praise, and I have to agree with it. It is so good. Outside my little minor nitpicks, this is a very fun movie. If you like Incredibles, you're going to like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Just so much fun, very engaging, and great. So I got to add my stamp of approval to this and say, see it now. Finish out this video and then go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I promise you, you're going to enjoy it. Go do it. Go do it now. So did you see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Let me know what you thought in those comments below. Who's your favorite version of Spider-Man? Also throw that in. Give me a big Spider-Man style thumbs up. And if you could share this video with anyone possible, that'd be incredibly helpful for me. So I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Until next time. Hold on to your hold slots.
I was born in the middle of the night when I went and did the wrong thing right. Stood and watched like a spider on the wall. Doing nothing made my whole world fall down.